On a quiet summer morning in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, a group of law enforcement officers gathered for what should have been a routine assignment. They had paperwork, they had a destination, and they had no reason to believe they were walking into one of the deadliest attacks on police officers in Kentucky history. What happened next would leave an entire community in shock. Multiple officers would never return home. Others would carry the scars for the rest of their lives. And at the center of it all was a man whose name would soon become known across the nation. But the most disturbing part of his story isn't just how it began, it's how it ended.
Turning now to Kentucky, where 3 police officers and a canine are dead. Captain Ralph Frazier, Deputy William Petrie, and Officer Jacob Chaffins were identified as the 3 officers. Drago was identified as the canine by the sheriff's office. Police responded to a shots fired call Thursday. The suspect who started shooting was taken into custody. Reports say 4 other officers were hurt.
June 30th, 2022, the small town of Allen, Kentucky was waking up like any other day. Nestled among rolling hills and winding roads, it was the kind of place where major tragedies felt far away. That morning, officers were dispatched to a residence on Main Street. Their mission seemed straightforward: serve an emergency protective order, execute an arrest warrant connected to a domestic violence investigation. Nothing about the assignment appeared unusual. No warnings, no signs, no indication that the person waiting inside has something entirely different planned. As officers approached the property, they believed they were carrying out a standard law enforcement procedure, but someone inside the home had been watching, and according to investigators, he was ready.
Yeah, Kristen, good evening. Those who knew him will remember Deputy William Petrie as a true leader, an excellent officer, and a beloved friend. And today we learned that Deputy Petrie was the first officer on scene Thursday night. At a news conference today, local leaders gave us insight into what led up to this mass shooting. Sheriff John Hunt says Thursday afternoon, deputies got a tip that the wife of Lance Storz was in need of help and claimed that she had been held against her will. Deputies responded that afternoon to do a welfare check. When they arrived, she allegedly ran outside to officers who took her somewhere safe. During an interview later, she allegedly told them Storz had raped her. The deputies were able to secure an emergency protective order against Storz, as well as an arrest warrant for assault in the 4th degree. Sheriff Hunt says Storz's wife told deputies that he had weapons in the home. When the deputies arrived, Hunt says they saw Storz in the window, pulling back the blinds. He says Storz opened the door and immediately began firing. When asked about the death penalty as a possible punishment, County Attorney Keith Bartley said that would be up to the Commonwealth's attorney. But he let us know how he really felt about Storz.
But death ain't good enough for some. I said on Friday that there should be a special place in hell for people like Mr. Storz, and if there ain't, there ought to be.
Understandably, emotions still running high here in Floyd County. In addition to Petrie, Prestonsburg Police Patrolman Jacob Chaffins and Captain Ralph Frazier were killed. A canine officer, Drago.
Without warning, gunfire erupted. The sound shattered the morning silence. Officers suddenly found themselves under attack, not from someone standing at the front door, not from someone attempting to flee. The shots were coming from above, from inside the residence. Investigators later revealed that the gunman had positioned himself near a window. Armed with a high-powered rifle, he allegedly opened fire on officers as they approached. The attack was swift, relentless, and devastatingly effective. Law enforcement personnel scrambled for cover. Radio traffic exploded with desperate calls for assistance. What began as a routine warrant service was rapidly transforming into something far more terrifying. Veteran officers would later describe the scene using a chilling phrase: a war zone, and the nightmare was only beginning. As additional officers rushed toward the scene, the danger continued to grow. The gunfire seemed endless. Every movement carried risk. Every attempt to rescue wounded officers exposed others to incoming rounds. Amid the chaos, reports began emerging of multiple casualties. Officers were down. Others were seriously wounded. Emergency personnel struggled to reach victims while the threat remained active. Then came another alarming development. The suspected gunman had barricaded himself inside the residence, but he wasn't alone. His wife and child were reportedly inside with him. What followed was a tense standoff that stretched on for hours. Negotiators worked desperately to bring the situation to a peaceful conclusion. Outside, families waited for answers. Inside, no one knew exactly what might happen next. The uncertainty was agonizing. One wrong decision could trigger another wave of violence. As the hours passed, a question hung over everyone involved. How would this end?
Dia, by the time the suspect was taken into custody, 8 public servants had been shot here in the small, tight-knit community of Allen. And take a look behind me today. There are still a lot of officers here on scene as state police continue their investigation. All day long, officers have been coming and going. They even extended the scene with yellow caution tape earlier this morning. The shootout happened a few blocks up the road on Main Street last night, just after 6:30. An arrest citation shows deputies showed up to the home of 49-year-old Lance Storz to serve an emergency order of protection after a domestic violence incident in the afternoon. And when they arrived, that order says Storz immediately began to shoot at them with a rifle. Floyd County Sheriff John Hunt told us Storz hit 2 officers initially, and then when backup arrived, he fired at them as well. The standoff lasted for a few hours until police were able to arrest Storz. Sheriff Hunt described that intense scene for LEX 18 this morning.
One deputy laid under a vehicle for hours as gunshot just went ringing over his head. And actually at one time the car that he was under just took a barrage of bullets and shot the canine dog in the back seat while this gentleman was under that car.
The injured officers were taken to hospitals across the region, including in Lexington, Prestonsburg, and West Virginia. So far, the victims have not been officially identified. Storz also made his first court appearance this morning. Sean Moody was there for that, and he joins us live now with what he learned. Good afternoon, Sean.
Hey, Evelyn, it was a pretty short appearance here in Floyd County District Court this morning. We saw Lance Storz arraigned on charges of murder of a police officer, attempted murder, and assault. Since these are all felonies, the judge automatically put in a not guilty plea on his behalf and assigned him a public defender so this case can move along. The Floyd County Sheriff and County Attorney were both in the courtroom this morning, and we talked to them after the arraignment to kind of get more of a sense of exactly what things were like out there last night. The Sheriff and the County Attorney were both pretty emotional this morning at the courthouse. We spoke with them after the arraignment. The County Attorney described it as a war zone. He said at first they weren't sure what direction the bullets were coming from. He said the shooter was firing multiple weapons, small and large caliber, and that the shots were coming very quickly. He said they couldn't tell whether it was automatic gunfire or a semi-automatic gun being fired very quickly. Ultimately, they said they took Storz into custody after hours of negotiating. They said the shooter made a movement to the outside and they took him into custody. It wasn't clear whether that means he surrendered to them or if they took him into custody by force. There are a lot of injuries here. People who were shot, people the county attorney said were hit with shrapnel. As you heard from Evelyn a moment ago, one was hiding under that car for hours and had carbon monoxide exposure. And of course, we know that at least 2 officers have died so far.
I don't know that there is any comfort for anybody at this time. Those people were not just police officers. I think that gets lost a lot of times in the media across the country. You hear about something happening in another state and you think, you know, a police officer shot, but it's not a police officer shot, or multiple police officers in this case. These are human beings. These are people with children, spouses, and mom and dads. And their world will never be the same.
And that's certainly going to be the feeling across Floyd County as more and more details about what happened last night start coming out and we learn more about the people who were killed and injured last night. This is, of course, a pretty small community, all things considered, and a lot of people are going to know the people who were out there last night and lost their lives. We're unaware so far of any memorial services or anything like that, but we'll certainly keep you posted as we get word of those. Also, the sheriff identified the dog that was shot and killed as part of this response as Drago. We also asked about the other family members. Of course, we're told this all began as a domestic incident, and so we asked the sheriff about any other family members who may have been involved. We were told that those family members were in a safe place once this all happened last night. Going forward from here, we're told that Storz will remain jailed in the Pike County Jail on a $10 million bond. His next preliminary hearing will be July 11th at 1:30. Dia, it's just been an absolutely awful night for the people here in Floyd County, and it's really only going to get sadder as we start to learn more about the people who lost their lives, the people who are injured, the people who are going to have just a life change.
Eventually, after nearly 5 hours, the standoff came to an end. The gunman surrendered, but by then the damage had already been done. 3 law enforcement officers had lost their lives: Deputy William Petrie, Captain Ralph Frazier, Officer Jacob Chaffins, who succumbed to his injuries the following day. A police canine named Drago was also killed. Several other officers and emergency personnel were wounded. The tragedy sent shockwaves through Kentucky and beyond. Communities mourned. Funerals filled with grieving families, fellow officers, and citizens became painful reminders of the cost of that day. Meanwhile, investigators began building a case against the man accused of carrying out the ambush, a case that could potentially end with the ultimate punishment. The man accused of orchestrating the attack was 49-year-old Lance Storz. Prosecutors prepared an extensive case against him: 3 counts of murder of a police officer, multiple counts of attempted murder, and a long list of additional charges. Authorities were reportedly preparing to seek the death penalty. A trial promised answers. Evidence would be presented. Witnesses would testify, and victims' families hoped they would finally see justice delivered inside a courtroom. But that day would never come.
2 officers dead, many more hurt in Floyd County, Kentucky.
WDRB's Chris Suter tells us about the accused gunman. Chris?
Yeah, guys, this is him, Lance Storz. You can see him right here. He is bruised and bloody following that violent rampage that 2 officers did not walk away from.
It's not a police officer shot, or multiple police officers in this case. These are human beings. These are people with children, spouses, and mom and dads. And their world will never be the same.
Those victims were just identified. They are Captain Ralph Frazier of the Prestonsburg Police Department and Deputy Will Petrie of the Floyd County, Kentucky Sheriff's Office. A canine named Drago was also killed. Storz appeared in court this morning. He pleaded not guilty to all charges. Kentucky State Police say the shootout happened around 6:30 last night in Allen, Kentucky, which is about 35 miles from Hazard. The sheriff says it started as deputies delivered a warrant related to a domestic violence situation. Deputies called for help when they say the suspect started shooting.
And when I say it's a war zone, when I pulled into this area, we're talking about people in fatigues, people with body armor, people with night vision, people with assault weapons. If that's not a war zone, I don't know what it is. You know, when I get out of the car, there's bullets raining down on us. It's a war zone.
ASB tells us one of the officers hurt is in critical condition. 2 other officers are stable and 1 officer was treated and released. Reports say the emergency management director in Floyd County was also hurt. Storz is being held on a $10 million bond. Chris Suter, WDRB News.
On February 28, 2023, while awaiting trial inside the Pike County Detention Center, Lance Storz was found dead. Investigators later determined that he had died by suicide.
Story here at noon. A Kentucky man accused of killing 3 officers and a police canine in eastern Kentucky last year took his own life in jail overnight while awaiting trial. This according to a Commonwealth's attorney, Brent Turner. Lance Storz was being held in the Pike County Detention Center after that June incident where police say he ambushed officers serving him a protective order at his home there in Allen, Kentucky. He'd pleaded not guilty to those crimes. All 3 officers and the canine were laid to rest in Prestonsburg.
For some, the news brought closure. For others, it brought frustration. Many felt the community had been denied the chance to see the legal process play out, denied the opportunity to hear every answer, denied the opportunity to confront the man accused of causing so much pain. To this day, The attack remains one of the darkest chapters in Kentucky law enforcement history. A tragedy that began with a routine knock at a door and ended with questions that many believe would never be fully answered. Alright y'all, there y'all have it, man. That's the crazy story of the Kentucky man taking out 3 officers and a canine and then ultimately ending it all in the county. Hey man, get in that comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Drillers and trappers, we outside trapping and drilling 247. Don't go nowhere. Watch that next video. Gang!